This is Jamie Dyer welcoming you to another edition of the Quo-Cast. And in this video, Baz Barry gives his thoughts on Status Quo's 1978 album, If You Can't Stand the Heat.
So we're talking Can't Stand the Heat, aren't we? Now,
That's right.
I thought I had very definite views on it. But when I just brought it up on Wikipedia, and it's like, so I'm going to change sort of my appraisal a bit. So to start with, when the original Predatur formed and we played our first gig at Woodcote Village Hall, the opening number was a really terrible version of Dancing a Night Away by the Motors. Sort of like the 12-inch single version. It sort of starts with the riff, which is just really awesome. I really loved it. But the second song we ever played live was Again and Again. And I'm thinking, oh, that's off of that album. But I just looked it up, and the single Again and Again, that was kind of released in the August, and I think the album was released in the October. So yeah, the second song we ever played was that, and I bought the single. And it was at the time, everyone who's sort of my age, it was into Quo around that time. It's like you're always desperate for the next thing, desperate. So I rushed out, I bought Again and Again. Can't remember what was on the B side. No, I can't remember at all. But actually, I sort of really liked it, and because it was Jackie Linton as well, wasn't it? Who sort of bump into occasionally. He's like, bless him. I love the way where it started out. You're like, oh, you got this sort of half time going on with John, and then he goes into the fours on the chorus, and it was like again. Wow, that's actually really loved that. But I sort of remember reading a write-up. It was probably in Sounds or Melody Maker, probably Sounds, because they were quite horrible to Quo. And it sort of said, it's weird what sticks in your mind, isn't it? Can't remember where I live some days or my granddaughter's name, but I remember little snippets of reviews from 1978. And whoever wrote it up, and I might have even kept it for years, it said, Status Quo latest single involves the phrase again, again, repeated again and again, a sort of repetition squared. And that was like typical of that sort of punk music press at the time. So that always stuck with me. So yeah, so in actual fact, that was the second song that we ever played live. It could have only have just come out because we would obviously try to work out our own way of doing it, lifting the vinyl up and down, trying to play it, because it's all online now, isn't it? Then the album came out, and I picked it up on the day it was released. And I think I might have had another gig, or there was a gig or something going on. So didn't get to, he's desperate to hear this album, so didn't get to hear it. So I must have got in about, 1 or 2 in the morning, desperate to hear it. So I sort of put it on headphones, and that was the shock. I wasn't fussed about the album cover. We'd had, On the Level and Blue for You, and to a certain extent the live album, these brilliant, exciting album covers, rocking all over the world. It was like no one could be bothered with that, it seemed. And then suddenly you got Again, Can't Stand the Heat, and that was a bit, I don't know, it was a bit twee. Anyway, so put it on headphones. It's like all you can hear is this brass and everything. And I was like really shocked. And I sort of looking back now and looking down the list of the songs, and I can understand why they were trying to do something different, because some of the songs were actually all right. I was looking them up. I think in the end, it's a bit like all these things. You haven't got anything else to play, and you can't skip the tracks. It's on vinyl. So actually, when I glanced down at all the tracks, it's like, I knew them all intimately. And that's and partly why we did Wicker House on vinyl. It's because it was different to the other two. It's like, actually, it's a real pain in the ass to skip the tracks. You have to get through it. Looking at it, it's like, maybe it wasn't so bad, but it was that, my my initial hearing was like, oh, this brass all over. It's like, that's not Quo. What is going on here? You know, it was, yeah, it's a bit, well, it just seemed wrong after On the Level and Blue for You and that. And, you know, you would consider the fans to be sort of quite hardcore. We'd had a bit of a wobble with Rocking All Over the World. So, yeah, so you had Again and Again, and then they released Accident Prone, didn't they? And
yes,
and like all Quo fans hated that. All the hardcore, everybody I knew that was a Quo fan hated that. But weirdly, anyone that wasn't a Quo fan really liked it. Sort of that makes sense. You're like, what? You know, it's awful. So, oh yeah, I really like that single. And so, yeah, so I remember that, and I'm sort of going, I'm looking down the tracks and I'm thinking, yeah, I think that actually, Like a Good Girl, that was sort of a bit more of a rocker, but it's almost a bit like you were really desperate for something that really rocked. And it's the same with oh, can't give you more, can't give you more, probably off of Rocking All Over the World. It's like where all for me, and actually this is only a personal, it's just a personal view. It's like I loved I loved every track on every album with the exception of Fine Fine Fine, right up to Rocking All Over the World, where you're trying to grab stuff. To be fair, I've never gone back and listened to that, so I might find I feel differently about it now. I'm not going to go back and listen to Can't Stand the Heat, because I can, when I'm looking down the track list, I can hear all of that in my head. So, and when I'm sort of looking down, thinking, oh, Let Me Fly, actually, I really kind of like that laid back. I've gone through the tracks, I'm going, actually, oh, and I really hated this album. It's like, oh, actually, no, I really remember liking that. So I remember liking Let Me Fly. That had a nice thing, a bit like Young Pretender, those kind of little step things. And Francis' voice, it's like, oh, that's clever. I'm trying to think whether I actually tried to write something like that. I might have done, actually, and Mick didn't like it. I can't remember. I haven't got a CD handy. I think I tried to do something on. Hang on. Oh no, I can't remember what the song was called. I think I might have tried to do something like that on whatever the second album, Predator second album was, In Your Garden.
In Your Garden, yeah.
Yeah, there's a track on that, I think. Time to Go. Day to work it out. I don't need to go. I don't need to work it out. That one, I think that is probably influenced sort of Let Me Fly, Young Pretender. I'm sort of remember writing it. Mick was living with me at the time, and he wasn't overly keen, but we put it on anyway. So yeah, Let Me Fly, Stones. I don't know. There was I think with Alan, bless him, he'd written some really fantastic songs, you know, and you sort of go, and I probably have said all this before, that all the really great riff-based stuff, that was Alan. Everything that went na 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 na, that was Francis and Bob, you know, in really broad general terms. You know, you sort of Backwater, Just Take Me, you know, monster riffs, they were Alan. You know, Drifting Away, I think that was Alan. It's like, oh my God, this stuff's awesome, man. And Don't Think It Matters, you know, it's all Alan. And, you know, Rick was sort of more sort of ballady a bit, wasn't he, really? So Stones, it was like, and I think, you know, they just, Andy Bound, Long-Legged Linda, he was in a band, wasn't he? Because I think that Long-Legged Linda, there's a version of that on the Reading Rock Live Festival.
He was performing solo.
Yeah. Well, he was in a band called, I was going to say Green Gage, but it isn't that, but someone will know. He was in a band and they played Reading Festival, and I think they did Long-Legged Linda in 72. That Quo do a Don't Waste My Time on live at Reading Festival 72, and it's just slamming away. It's really bummed notes all over the place, but really exciting and really kind of, it is frantic. I sort of get that. And I think that whatever band Andy Bound was in then, there's a version on that. But ultimately, that Reading Festival album, all the Quo fans just got it for that. Don't Waste My Time. So what a night. So I'm not fussed about that. Yeah, Andy Bound. And sort of Bernie Frost, he started making an appearance then as well. I'm just looking down. Giving up my worry. And yeah, no, I wasn't fussed about that. Gonna treat you to
yeah.
Yeah, Alan Lancaster and Mick Green, wasn't it? He started that might gonna treat you to love me. I think that sort of when that breaks into the solo actually. I think I played it for 50 years. There's bits of it you sort of go, actually I'm looking at this now, I'm going, oh yeah, actually no, there's bits in it that actually are really great. I think Francis goes into solo on that. Someone show me how to do. Oh, well, that's like that typical do 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 do. I really, really, really loved that. Down by the side, but for the keyboards in it's there's probably loads of songs that actually do that, and because I like those songs, I like that. But I think I was slightly annoyed. I was slightly annoyed lyrically with it as well. I thought it was a bit lazy, where I thought all Quo lyrics were really awesome, but not on this album, probably. So, and it is weird how things work out, because there's a film, and we all used to hang around all the sort of Reading bands, and we were good friends with everyone. I used to see Larry Miller a lot. We always used to congregate around a mate's house, and we used to watch this film over and over. And it's like, it was actually probably a bit shit, but it wasn't. It was called The Monster Club. You're probably way too young to remember it, but you check it out. So weirdly, and I think B.A. Robertson, he might have done the title track. So it was all these little crappy little, almost like a B movie, crappy little monster stories. And B.A. Robertson was on it. And the Pretty Things, they did a really good track on it. And then they're in a nightclub, and this song comes up. It's like a rock song. It's a fantastic female vocalist who we didn't know who she was. And the song was called The Stripper. And it's like, I am going to, spoiler alert, if you end up digging this film out, it's obviously this girl's taken all her bits off, but because it's the Monster Club, and it's like, so in the end, she strips all her skin off, she's down to a dancing skeleton. That's how that's the ultimate stripper, I suppose. But it's like, this song was really, really great. And we ended up, I was playing with Tammy Dark from time to time, and Tabby Roberts, she's still an awesome mate. And so we did a Predatur gig, and we got her up to sing this song, The Stripper. We thought it was awesome. Anyway, the vocalist was called Stevie Lange. I'm gonna say Stevie Lange, i.e. Lange. So probably now people will say that she was the then wife of Muck Lange, who ended up being everybody's producer and being more important than the band at some point, I suppose. But she had this fantastic voice, and you sort of go, why wasn't she massive? Because it she that was her husband. There's no excuse for that. But she's the backing vocalist. Like, she's the named in blue writing on my Wikipedia as a backing vocalist. So probably Long Leg Linda. Oh, what a night. I mean, I can't think where she is on there, but that the connection there is she's the female backing vocalist. And I think that was probably a first for Quo as well. I'm not sure you can really say you can't hear a female voice right up to that point. Not obviously like you can with hers. So, yeah, no, she was awesome. And, she's on that album. We're like, oh, Stevie Lange, that's, so we made that connection with the Monster Club, which I urge you to watch. I don't know how well it'll stand up, probably pretty terribly. But the Pretty Things is really great on it. So in actual fact, that sort of that when I sort of look at that album now, despite the fact when I first put it on and all I could hear was Brass, and I was truly horrified. It's like, I'm not going to swear. It's like, what is this? You know, my expectations. You know, I love Quo. I obviously listened to it because it was the latest album, and it's like I do know all these tracks and I don't mind them, but I can probably say that I probably never went back to that album once the next album came out, which was, I have to look it up.
Whatever you want.
Oh, was it? Yeah, I didn't like that either. I didn't like the album cover. And it's like, yeah, come on, I didn't like the album cover with this. It's like, really? You know, I was sort of hardcore. You know, it's Quo and Motorhead and Pistols and The Damned and what is this? You know, so yeah, and it flipped up. I think there was a picture of John, wasn't there, in the middle of it with drums. If I've given all my Quo vinyl away, there you go. I don't play vinyl at all anyway. So I think it was that, and there might have been a picture of them on the back. But I think part of it might have been in his frilly shirt again, and it's like, oh, come on, I want the middle of blue for you. So, you know, I don't wish to upset anyone. This is just my personal memories of this album. But actually, it kind of, the tentacles of it actually ended up being, you know, influencing a Predator song, whichever one that was. Work It Out, probably, and I actually don't mind some of the tracks, and I found probably with all After Blue for You, all the sort of late Quo albums, and some, you know, obviously I've never listened to, because actually you don't want to go, oh, I really like that, oh, I can't write a song like that now. So you do kind of, if you're trying to do your own thing, I think naturally you're then too busy. You know, Quo's a massive influence, but then you do move on. But so, yeah, no, that Stevie Lange and that kind of Monster Club, and you know, we ended up getting Tammy on stage to do the track The Stripper, and she's on this album. And to be fair, I think that's the first time we'd heard of her, or we managed to equate that name to a physical person doing other stuff. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and again, you know, and of course I think we played at Jackie's 50th or 60th or 80th or however old he was years ago, and it's yeah, well, that's the point. Yeah, that is weird. It's like, who's this Jackie Linton? It's like, and then on the back of that Jackie Linton, we used to go and see Jackie Linton's HD band up in London. John Bennon, the original guitarist, he could drive, so he used to have about 18 people packed in a little Datsun and go and see Jackie Linton. And of course, Jackie Linton is probably he's my sort of biggest influence as a front man. You know, I'd love to go into detail, but I can't on your podcast. You know, you came on stage and started chatting. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe you said that out loud. And brilliant. So, and it's like, yeah, I've seen Jackie, I'm mates with Jackie, I played with Jackie, and Jackie co-wrote again with Rick as an 18-year-old, listening to that album on headphones and going, what is this? This is awful. I could never, ever, ever have imagined being on stage with Jackie, knowing him, playing with him. We did do some recording with him, but that didn't work out. And then sort of ended up playing with John for however long it was, 12 years. And this was obviously long before I met Mick. It is weird how things turn out. So I'm not dismissing this album. Nothing was as good as After Blue for You for me, I suppose. And so I tend, like, the odd track and the odd solo I liked, up to the point where I didn't listen anymore. But actually, I probably owe this album a lot more than I realise in terms of how things worked out. Yeah, it's all right. I was very hardcore, and it's like, this is... But in a way, I can understand, because Pip Williams again, isn't it, who I don't know. I always loved Quo producing themselves, but I sort of understand. I understand how you kind of want to evolve. That's happened to me a bit. So I understand that. There are some good songs on there. You know, yeah, not the best, but yeah, Jackie Linton got a song on there, and he must have been desperate to get another one on. I don't know if he managed to do anything else or not, actually, but
I don't think so.
No. Because Francis, who was it? Francis. No, I've never personally spoken to Francis, but I've heard this story that. So Jackie, I think he was a paint and decorator, and he was doing a lot of stuff with doing a lot of stuff around Rick's house, I think. And Francis came round, and sort of Jackie'd be sort of paint. You won't mind me saying this. It might not even be true. Vicky Lockett, he used to say, and he so he'd sort of they'd be sat in this room, and Jackie'd come in and start painting. You know, so they'd move to another room, and Jackie'd come in there like Francis. They'd never seen him paint anything so quickly as to be sort of hanging about. But that was, you know, fantastic. I'd love to have co-wrote with one of them. That would have just been, you know, an amazing thing, really. That, you know, that band up to a point meant such a lot, you know, and in a way it still does to loads of people. It's like, it isn't quite the same for me, but that's not taking anything away from, you know, I've got these fantastic memories, you know, and that doesn't mean the album was great, but actually, you know, those memories are really clear, and, you know, wow, how things turned out. So I'm gonna say, actually, if it wasn't for Can't Stand the Heat, we couldn't have put a name to Stevie Land. She was great, and I don't know why she wasn't a monster star. Maybe someone can ring in and try and sort out that. It was the second song we ever played as Predator, the original Predator lineup. That was awesome. We suddenly got to hear of Jackie Linton. We used to go and see him play, and he's a massive influence on the way I am on stage. So yeah, I owe it, and probably why do I need to work it out? I think it's like Time to Go. I don't know. I can't remember how that goes. And actually, Time to Fly, Work It Out. That's you know, that style of song. That's the first time that sort of makes an appearance, really. So I really sort of like that. That sort of stepped away from three chords a bit. So I'm going to say I owe it a lot more than I thought I did when I saw your post. On reflection, I owe it more than that. I still think the cover's crap, and I don't like the production, and it didn't rock hard enough. But I understand why they were trying to do something different, and, you know, yeah, it was all right, you know, and yeah, good old Jackie. I mean, he's been dining out on that for years, hasn't he? But, you know, honestly, Jack, if that had been me, I'd be dining out on it still. Fantastic, you know, and it worked really well, actually. That single, I really loved it, but obviously sounds didn't. You can probably find that review, you know, because they just didn't like her then, because it was all about the punk thing then. Yes, 78, you know, you're right bang into it. So, but yeah, all this brass, I don't know. But then, you know, Francis is on one of the tracks. Is it Like a Good Girl? As it ends, you know, Francis chatting, oh, it's coming forward, it's going back, and it's like, yeah, it's like, God, Francis is talking. It's like, then all those little things that isn't just about a song. It's a personal thing, you know. All the chat from all the, you know, take one, ring, ding, 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 and all that stuff. You know, you poured all over that. That was just as important as that was all part of it. It was. Every poster, every album, you know, you're desperate, you know, so obviously, yeah, it took a bit of getting used to, I suppose, probably, but elements of it kind of worked out okay and had a much bigger influence than I actually didn't realise till I've actually sat, I'm rambling on, had an influence that I didn't realise till I actually sat down and talked to you. I was going to say, yeah, I put it on headphones and it was awful, but actually when I look down the tracks, I'm going, oh no, oh my word, there's this and this and this. So it's funny how things work out.
Thanks very much for watching this video from the Quo-Cast. If you'd like to hear more from Baz, you can hear the extended version on the podcast feed. I will leave all the details in the description below.